Welcome to a new realm of insights into the Korean Peninsula. At Korea Risk Group, we delve deep into the complexities of North and South Korea, offering bespoke analyses that empower decision makers. Whether you're in government, business, or academia, our tailored solutions provide clarity in an opaque region. Let our team guide your strategy with data-driven insights and on-the-ground intelligence. Step into a world of informed decision-making and visit KoreaRiskGroup.com today. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and today it is Tuesday, the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. Welcome on the show, Alannah.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be back. I feel like it's been ages.
It does feel like it's been a while,
Yeah.
yes. Did you have a good Festivus yesterday?
I did, yeah. I actually had the day off yesterday, so I'm a little bit behind on what went down. I tried to catch up this morning. But the day-to-day things can change so quickly, you know?
It's never a boring day in Korea. There's always something going. This is why journalists in Korea should never, ever take a vacation, because you're always going to miss something.
Exactly. And we had Brian's famous last words.
He's not dead,
the martial law week. He was like, I think it's going to be a quiet week. And then we had martial law.
He said, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we always jinx ourselves. We're also in the evening time, come around 6 p.m. when we say, looks like we might be able to finish early today. And then everyone in the office is like, no, don't say that.
I think that's one of those moments this year where hopefully all of us can remember where we were when we heard martial law's just been declared.
I know exactly where I was. I was at home on my couch, just in shock and total disbelief. Is this real?
Where
were you?
I was getting ready for bed, and my wife was watching, I think, a video on YouTube that someone had sent her and said, martial law's just been declared. And I said, I don't think so. Let's turn on the TV, get on the Yonhap News or the YTN and see what's really going on. And then I did, and my jaw resounded off the floor. It was such a shock. Okay, but we're here to talk about two stories of the last week or so that are relevant today. So where would you like to start?
So I wanted to briefly start with some of the Ukraine updates with some interesting stories from my excellent colleague Anton, who does such a great job of monitoring just the wave of news and sifting through what potentially could be real, what's not real. And
the mill bloggers.
Exactly.
If we didn't have Anton, where would we be?
I don't even want to think about it. No, he's fantastic. So he had two stories yesterday. The first one, I think, is the more interesting one. It came from Ukrainian intelligence talking about these fake IDs, IDs that they found on dead North Korean soldiers, or they purport to be North Korean soldiers.
Yes.
So they found these Russian military IDs on these soldiers. Russian IDs. Now, littered with inconsistencies. The stamps weren't right, Anton said. There was a couple of things that were wrong. And so the names also that they used on these IDs officially in Russian came from these like a Tuvan. I think is it an ethnicity or a region? I'm not sure. But they tried to make them look like they weren't North Koreans. However, the signatures were in Hangul and were North Korean names. Or Korean names.
Hangul, as the Koreans would call it. Yeah.
So, really interesting story. We had a chat about it this morning because what I couldn't understand is, why do you go to the effort of making a fake ID and then have someone sign in their real name? Because obviously the names in Russian and then in Hangul don't match. But Anton was explaining that perhaps that, they just printed out a stack of IDs, handed them out to these North Korean soldiers, and they just signed, It could be something as simple as that.
The names on the IDs, are they Korean names written in Cyrillic alphabet?
No. So in the Cyrillic alphabet, they're Tuvan-style names.
Okay, and Google tells me that Tuvans are a Turkic ethnic group indigenous to Siberia that live in Tuva, Mongolia, and China.
Right, okay, didn't know that. But then their actual signatures were in Hangul.
Well, that is... why would you do that?
Well, it seems like it's maybe, as Anton said, it could be something as simple as they were handed these out, in a queue of people and just signed
And the person who was supposed to give the instructions, whatever you do, don't sign your name in Chorsongul, that person wasn't there that day.
Or was giving the instructions in Russian, maybe.
Or was giving
Who knows? Yeah. So that was an interesting one.
And these are IDs that have been found on dead soldiers, yes?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so we do have now, if this is all, if this all checks out, then this is North Korean kills on the battlefield.
Yeah. And so this morning, Zelensky on his Twitter, he put that number at dead and wounded at 3,000.
Of North
Koreans, yeah. Well, so the latest from Seoul, I think, was around 1,000. So it's quite a lot more than that, obviously. But again, as Anton and I were chatting this morning, of that 3,000, not sure how many's wounded, not sure how many's dead.
Right.
But that was the figure he had this morning from North Koreans fighting on the front lines.
Now, we can only imagine, we can only speculate here, listeners, that any South Korean observers or intelligence officers who are over there embedded with or working with the Ukrainians would be very, very eager to talk to any injured North Korean found on the battlefield.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting next development in this story because it's inevitable, really.
Yeah.
Or at least I think it is.
Well, if they're there, then it's inevitable that eventually somebody will be captured or will turn themselves in or will go AWOL or will get lost. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities and ways that soldiers can end up in enemy hands.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll have to wait for that next development.
Gosh.
And then the other story he wrote yesterday, just briefly, actually came from Moscow and was talking about how North Koreans were actually observing these huge military drills in September, I believe. So it just again kind of highlights how long this cooperation has been going on.
Right. When that mutual defence treaty was signed, what was that was in the summer, right? Around July
June or July,
so? Yeah.
But clearly there'd been talks of, maybe potential military cooperation. North Koreans were observers at these big drills. And then October, I believe, was the first time that we had reports about actual troop deployment. So kind of all lines up, really.
Right. Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So that is news from the front. What else have we got that's been big this week?
The second story, an excellent piece from your fellow countryman, Mr. Ifang Bremer.
Who's on vacation in the home country right now. So
how do you say Happy Christmas in Dutch?
Who is, prettige kerstfeest.
Okay.
He's probably having lots of, pea soup and kroketten and oliebollen. Well, that's coming up for New Year's Eve. But anyway, have a great time there, Ifang, if you're listening.
Hello, Ifang. He had an excellent story from Syria. So he actually worked with a fixer who went to the North Korean Embassy in Damascus. And so he wrote, I'll of course link it in the show notes, but he wrote about what she could see, what was left of the embassy, potential reports that there's people still there. Despite reports last week we had that came from Moscow that all the North Korean embassy had been evacuated.
Right.
Really interesting, good pictures as well. And the fixer did a fantastic job about talking to people in the neighbourhood. So the neighbours of that building, people that worked around there and what they could see and what they saw as the North Koreans were evacuating. So really good story.
I did see that. It was a remarkable story there.
Yes, yeah.
And it seems that people are still there in the North Korean embassy, right? That they haven't all just run away.
Yeah, so one of the neighbours that's actually, I think, works in the building, or maybe the basement of the building, I can't exactly remember, but had talked about they can hear the generator still running. And I think maybe have seen people come or go, or I'm not 100% sure, maybe heard people. But I remember definitely about hearing the generator, which is obviously, someone has to turn that on and off. So there has to be somebody still in there. Now, it could just still be local staff. We don't know.
Yes, it could be. Of course, in any situation where there is some sort of civil war or regime change or revolution, if you're a foreign embassy in that country, one of the first things you want to do is remove all sensitive materials and destroy that which you cannot remove.
Yes.
And the North Koreans have been in Syria for decades.
Yes.
So they have a lot of papers to either burn or move out of there.
Which they had done, according to Ifang's story. There was neighbours talking, it's the smell of burning.
Right.
And apparently had been going on for a few, a while before they evacuated. So that was definitely a priority.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one. I remember talking to somebody years ago who lived on the U.S. Embassy compound here in Seoul with the Marines, whose task was to go into the embassy and basically remove and destroy documents and hard drives and things, not to get people out, but to protect secrets.
Wow, interesting.
But the other thing, of course, you want to do is make sure that your building remains in good order, so that if in some future administration you can come back to that country, that you don't end up with a trashed building where everything's been looted.
Exactly.
So, they haven't just left the doors open for the fixer to walk in, have they?
No. She tried to enter, and I don't think she could.
Right.
But yeah, really, really good piece. And also follows on from a piece we had, a contributor piece last week, talking about, like you say, what we could learn if we have access to these documents, or even people on the ground, or, there's a lot that we could learn about Syria's relationship with North Korea and potential weapons cooperation over the years with the fall of Assad. So yeah, really interesting story, and hopefully more interesting things to come from that.
I remember a couple of years ago we did a story here on NK News about documents found at a abandoned construction site in, I believe it was Namibia. I fixed it down there. It was some big construction project that North Korea was working on there, and they had a building where the North Korean workers sort of lived and had their office, and they left behind documents pertaining to the construction.
Wow.
I mean, nothing of sensitive nature like weapons, but still interesting things to learn just from papers left lying around. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can learn so much from that. And oh man, imagine talking to those North Korean diplomats before they were exfiltrated from Syria. I mean, it must have been interesting for them, but also potentially scary, because they're watching the country that they're allied with going down in flames, or the government of that country. But B, they may also be wondering, well, will we be up for sort of re-education when we go back to North Korea? Because these are Syrians who have seen North Koreans who have seen a revolution in Syria. They may be taking back some dangerous ideas to North Korea.
Yeah, very scary. I can't imagine. And it was employees and a lot of their families as well. From what neighbours said, when they were watching them be evacuated, they said all these luxury SUVs pulled up appeared to be Russian guards.
And Russian guards helping the North Koreans to exfiltrate.
And
once
taking
again,
them
showing
and their
that
families.
Close cooperation there on military, on security. Wow.
So, from Syria to Russia is quite a culture shock, I imagine.
Yeah, wow. Okay, good luck to those people wherever they are now. And have you got any final thoughts to leave us with?
Just want to say Happy Christmas to everyone. Thank you to all our listeners, and Happy New Year as well.
Thank you very much, Alannah. Yeah, Happy Christmas to you, and we'll see you in 2025 with more stories and no quiet weeks. Of course, there's always something going on here in Korea, for better or worse.
True that, exactly. Thanks, Jacco.
Thank you. Bestsellers unveiled at NK News Shop. Step out in style with our top-selling apparel from the NK News Shop. Fly high with the Air Cordial T-shirt, celebrating DPRK's golden era of aviation in vintage airline chic. Explore the stars with our Nada hoodie, inspired by North Korea's answer to NASA. Or toast to tradition with our Taedonggang beer T-shirt, capturing the essence of North Korea's renowned brew. Each design is a conversation starter. Find yours at shop.nknews.org. Again, that's shop.nknews.org. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alannah Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.